I think sometimes we think, well, it's because they're so young, we have the right to talk to them like that, but they're still a human. They still have the same operating system we do. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. I've had a lot of people asking for an update, so we're going to start there. Where in the world am I right now? What have I been up to? We're still in New Zealand. It's so beautiful here. We're about to leave, and I just heard it snowing because we live in the mountains back home. So I'm soaking in this lovely Southern Hemisphere summer for now. It's been amazing. We've done some fantastic hikes. I know I've told you about that. We had the most intense hike, one of the most intense hikes on my birthday a couple of weeks ago. So that was so fun. For the last few months, when I'm not exploring or hiking, though, with my family, I've been updating the pivot. So that's what else I've been up to. We've been in this process for a while. We just wrapped up the last pivot a month ago, and we started the whole revamping process when we were in Rome. So that was in October. And I've said this on the podcast, but I'll say it again. We recorded all of the lessons again in the most, just this cute little studio we found in Rome. I love it. It was such a cool experience. So we're going through now that we've released the new lessons, we're revamping again. So that's what I've been up to. We've had multiple rounds of the pivot this last year in 2024, and we were evaluating every single one, tracking the results of the pivot with hundreds and hundreds of parents going through it, many of which are still working with me in CMP Mastery. That's where you can transition after the pivot. So fun. We have learned a ton over the last year. And like I said, in this process of iterating and improving, we have changed so many things. I'm very, very, very excited because we're going to be launching Pivot. I'm going to call it 5.0 in March. So if you're interested in getting a spot or repeating it, if you've done it before, you can check out all of the details on the website and reserve your spot. I think you can already reserve it, but if not, check back because we'd love to have you. So this is very exciting. And so we've been doing that and getting all of the moments that we can, soaking it all up in New Zealand. Highly recommend this beautiful country for anybody who's an outdoorsy person. So incredible. And I've been teaching a ton in Mastery, which is the transition place. I don't know what to call it, course. It's not really a course. It's this magical place where you can come and continue to deep dive on all of Connect Method Parenting stuff. In Pivot, we go through it really quickly. We hit it hard for 8 weeks, and a lot of things will change. But for those neural pathways to really shift, more time and a slower cadence, that's the word, a slower deep dive is so helpful. So they're two of the highest quality programs ever produced. And I think I have the most high quality people in the programs. The parents who show up for the Connect Method Parenting programs inside of League, because both Pivot and Mastery are inside an umbrella I would call League, which is the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents. It's where we gather to change the trajectory of our parenting and the world. Anyway, the people that come in there, the parents that come in there, they're just ridiculously, unbelievably high quality, amazing people. And I'm so impressed by them. And I feel so honored to work with them. I'm super excited about that. And I've really enjoyed, just also making this podcast. And as we've journeyed for the last 6 months, which is about to end, which I have mixed emotions about, but it's about to end. It's been fun to chronicle some of the ups and downs that have happened on this adventure with you all and help you see how I process it and show up as the best parent I possibly could. Because it's a different dynamic these last 6 months have been to be with my kids 24/7 without them having any other activities or friends or things that they're going to. And so that's been so fun. Such a good learning experience, such a fun experience, all of the things. So should we get to this episode? Thanks for letting me do a little recap. Should we get to this episode? We're going to talk about going all in because a sort of commitment never won an Olympic medal. And goodness knows that parenting feels like we're training for the Olympics, and it's that important to us. If you talk to, or not, I haven't talked to, well, actually my cousin did go to the Olympics as a pole vaulter. That's what it was. And her commitment was off the chart. So there is one person I've talked to that's gone to the Olympics. But when I hear them interviewed, and I and I learn about what they have done to get themselves there, it is nothing short of incredible resilience. So let's first talk about what resilience really means, because if it's the key indicator of success, and we all want that as parents, then resilience isn't something we want to take lightly. It's something we want to own. And here's the good news. It isn't a personality trait. Thank goodness. It's the result of having a strong, compelling reason to persevere and to grow. And if there is one thing that parents have, it is a strong, compelling reason. Resilience is crucial. It's so crucial, you all, to parenting, because raising a child is full of unpredictability. It's full of challenges. There's emotional highs, there's emotional lows. Resiliency in parenting isn't about endurance, although there is that element to it. I would say it's more about staying emotionally present, adapting, and continuing to nurture your child even when things feel overwhelming, even when off-track behavior is getting to be a lot. It's staying on course, even when we mess up. So I was having this conversation with the parents in CMP Mastery this week, which, like I said, is different than Pivot. It's similar but different. And I've been getting actually this question a lot lately, the difference between Pivot and Mastery. So let me just pause for just a second and tell you briefly the difference. So again, they're both in this overarching container I call League, or the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents. But Parenting Pivot is this intense 8-week boot camp where we learn the entire CMP framework in 8 weeks, and we build a ton of momentum, we build foundation. And then to create lasting permanent change after the 8 weeks, a lot of parents transition into CMP Mastery. And CMP Mastery is phase 2. It's slower, it's deeper. The cadence creates mastery. It gives the brain time and the necessary repetitions to create those new neural pathways, which we really need, because we need to let go of behavioralism and let Connect Method Parenting become the default. So they're kind of like sister programs. Both are, get instruction, both have live calls, but the Pivot's where you get your feet wet, and the Mastery is where you really learn your strokes. That's a good way. If we're using a swimming analogy, that's what I would say. You get your first lessons, how not to, how to get to the side, how to doggy paddle in Pivot, and a lot more. I mean, it's an incredible program. I teach as much as I possibly can in 8 weeks. And a lot of people actually do the Pivot twice, which I recommend actually, because it's just good to get that foundation twice. But once you've got your feet wet, you're ready to learn the strokes, ready to go to swim team, ready to start up in the game. So that's the difference. And so this past week, we were talking in Mastery. We were talking about different situations, and there was this theme of resilience that was coming up. Not directly. This was what I call office hours. It's a coaching call. We come on, we brainstorm, we talk about real things and work through them. So it was just organically coming up. I didn't start the call and say, today we're going to talk about resilience like I am on the podcast, but it just came up, and it's come up, this theme, multiple times. So we were talking about implementing and what it looks like to go all in on something versus fail ahead of time and not really go in on something. And I think so much of this comes down to resilience and being willing to iterate as many times as necessary to hit a goal. And with parenting, our why is so big. There is no way we are willing to quit on parenting. Who cares if it takes 2 years, 5,000 fails, and having to face all of my insecurities that I'm not enough? That's the amazing thing about parenting, is we are willing to do it. Even though we have resistance, even though our nervous system might say, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? We really do want it more than, I would say, almost anything else, if not anything else in our life. And because it's the most important thing for us to be a good parent for our children, and if we believe what attachment theory is built on, which is that what we need more than anything else, more than food, more than water, our primary foundational preeminent need is connection, is attachment, is relationships, then we have our marching orders and what we are needing to create, what we are needing to protect. I believe most of us believe that relationships and attachment and connection are more important, or one of the most important things in the world to us. But then the issue is, what does that actually look like in real life? How do I do that as a parent? How do I preserve the relationship without becoming passive, which is what we talk about here on the podcast all of the time. It's the mission of League and these two programs I've just been describing inside of League, Mastery and Pivot. And I want all of the League members listening right now, whether you're in Pivot or CMP mastery, I want you to really listen up because I'm teaching you the ins and outs of attachment theory every single week. So you've totally got this covered. And if you haven't joined League yet, I want you to really listen up. And I highly recommend you join Pivot next time we offer one. But if you don't, that's okay too. I love that you're here. And you can get a really good idea about what attachment theory is just by listening to this podcast or grab my book. So I'm going to assume that everyone who has decided to stick with me this far, to listen to this podcast, is going to use the next 3 things that I'm going to talk about with the aim to create more connection. So to increase connection, not to increase control, not to increase manipulation, which although, let's just go there for a second, although control and manipulation, which we veil in timeouts and consequences that are punitive and lectures and all of those things, threats, bribes, they might give us what looks like a short-term win, but it's a long-term loss. Think of the impact it has on the relationship. And if you struggle to understand this, which I did back in the day, I would put myself in the position of my child and try to think about how that would feel if someone talked to me like that. And I think sometimes we think, well, it's because they're so young, we have the right to talk to them like that, but they're still a human. They still have the same operating system we do. And if my husband came home and grounded me from using the car because I hadn't followed through on some commitment I made to him, it would feel really icky versus him maybe understanding what was going on. Why didn't I follow through on that commitment? And coming and doing what we talk about in Connect with the Parenting, the Seen and Heard approach, which is where we really see and connect. And then we move through how to handle an off-track situation with so much compassion and firmness. So the things that you need to have to implement Connect with the Parenting, to create that relationship, that unconditional love that your children can trust will always be there just as much as they can trust the sun will rise every day. They will be able to trust that your acceptance, your love, your patience will be there just as reliably. They can take the love for granted, not you for granted, but the love, the connection, the relationship. That is what we're aiming for. And when we're trying to build that, so we're going to use what I'm talking about to build that, because it's going to be used for good or for bad. There's resilience, desire, and belief and commitment. And commitment and resilience go very close with each other. They're very close with each other, I think, because resilience is the effect of a compelling reason to complete something. And commitment is the start of that compelling reason. Let me break that down for you. I've touched on this before in the podcast, but I want to emphasize it again right now. This is how I explain this to my students. So imagine a life or death situation. If someone's life were at stake, that would be a pretty compelling reason. You could even say the ultimate compelling reason. In the moment, you wouldn't worry about hurting feelings or rejection or how much effort this was going to take. Those concerns would instantly fade away because your focus would be entirely on the outcome, saving the life. So that's an extreme example, but it illustrates just how powerful a compelling reason can be. When something truly matters, all of the usual doubts, distractions, they all fall away. Clarity takes over. So resilience isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something you develop. And I used to believe that certain people were just naturally resilient or successful or patient. That mom is so, compassionate. And no one starts off as a parent who has unending patience and unconditional love. Now, granted, there are for sure people who might have more to begin with or have developed more patience or naturally have more empathy. I will give you that too. But even those humans, even those amazing moms have to grow and feel and become more of all of those things if they want to be the parent they want to be. We don't get the title first and then prove it. We become great parents through experience, challenges, and commitment, through failing, through struggling, through having to figure it out. And then we have those attributes, the character traits that we want to have, the resilience, the patience, the love, success in anything, whether it's raising kids, building a business, improving your health. It doesn't come from having all of the answers up front. It comes from deciding to commit before you even know exactly how you're going to do it, and then figuring it out along the way. And this is so funny because this just happened and I didn't write anything down about this, but I'm going to go for it because it totally applies here. So this morning I was looking at pictures of myself from 2023. And that's when I stepped on the scale one day and I did not like the number. I was okay to a certain point and I hit that day and I thought, ooh, I did not like that number. And I started to do something about it. And I started taking pictures, and I started trying different ways of eating and different ways of exercising. And I looked at that picture and I thought, oh, wow, I forgot what I looked like back then. And I kind of have a roundish face already. So if I gain weight, it gets really round. And I was looking at my face and my body and my love handles. And I remember at that time deciding I was going to get to a place that was more healthy for me. It was less about the weight. It was more about, I could tell I'd just been lax coming off COVID. I ate whatever I wanted. We made lots of cookie dough. We had a lot of fun. I didn't go work out. And it showed. 2023 hit and it was very apparent what I had been doing. And I thought I knew what I was going to need to do to get out of it. And I tried most of 23 and part of 24 doing a certain diet, certain way of eating and exercising. And it helped a little bit. And then mid 2024, I found another way of eating. I'm with my nursing background. I didn't want it to just be a weight loss thing. I needed it to be a health thing. And I found some other ways that I liked eating and exercising. And I kid you not, I seriously took a picture in the mirror today and I said, holy cow, it's working. I can see a huge difference in what my body looks like, how I feel, the energy I have. But I had no idea how to do it from the beginning. It took me 2 years of figuring it out and iterating and watching it unfold. But I was committed. I was committed before I actually knew what to do. Because if we already know what to do, we would already be there. So it's okay. It's okay that we don't know what to do. It's the commitment that matters. Because success in anything comes from deciding beforehand, having that commitment before you know exactly what you're going to do, but committed to the outcome. So there are so many things that we can feel unsure about. So many things. And when I ask people, why do you doubt yourself? The answer is because I've never done it before, or I haven't done this particular thing before, or last time I did this, it didn't work. But if past experience determines future success, we would never do anything. We would never grow or evolve. And I want you to think how devastating this kind of mindset would be to our small kids. If they came to us and they said, I don't think I can learn to walk or read or talk, or, I mean, it'd be hard for them to say that if they didn't learn to talk, but you get the point. I don't know if I can go to school. I don't know if I can learn to tie a shoe. I've never done it before. As parents, we would never accept their rationale if they told us they couldn't do something they'd never done before. Of course, they've never done it before. They weren't supposed to do it before. This is the time they were learning to do it. And that's true for every human. Resilience isn't something you either have or don't have. A quality isn't something you just have or don't have. It's something you develop. Success is about the level of commitment you bring to that. So when you trust that you can figure things out along the way, you stop waiting for proof and you start creating results. That's the foundation of resilience. It's so important that we know this as parents, because there are so many situations that are going to stump us, that are going to make us question ourselves, that we're going to react in a way we don't like. And having the resilience, the commitment, the belief that, hey, I've got to look past what I don't know so that I can create something I do. We often look to our past for proof that we can succeed. And that's never going to get us where we want to go. Never. And if you question that, if your brain says, well, I mean, come on, how am I going to learn this new thing? Go back to what it's like for small children. They have to believe that they can do something they've never done before. So to recap, past experience doesn't determine success. Commitment does. And what fuels commitment? A compelling reason. Think about parenting. If your child's safety was at risk, you wouldn't stop and wonder, am I committed enough? Your reason would be so strong. That commitment wouldn't even be a question. So the same applies to any big goal. When your why is clear and deep and meaningful, resilience follows naturally. So what do you want to create in your life? Think about parenting, think about relationships, think about anything, your occupation, whatever it is. What do you want to create in your life? Have you truly decided what you want? Or are you just passively observing and what seems possible? Many people say, I'll just see what I want as I go. But real success starts when you decide what you want. When you make the decision with full commitment. Resilience isn't something you have to find. It becomes automatic when you continue to live this way. So if you want to parent from a place of connection, not correction, are you committed to doing the work to retrain your brain? Using developmental psychology, using attachment theory versus behavioralism, which is what we're swimming in out here. Are we committed to dealing with our own doubts? Are we committed to handling other people's opinions of how we're parenting? They're not understanding the temper tantrum that we're coming alongside and helping our child work through. They think we should just issue some type of ultimatum? Are we committed to following with our gut, knowing what we know is true about how humans work? And if someone else doesn't understand, being okay with that. Are we committed to really investing in the relationship so that our kids want to talk to us? They want to listen to us. They want to confide in us. Are we committed to dropping all the transactional parenting things that we've been led to believe is helpful? Who wants to be in a relationship that's transactional? I don't. I hate that feeling when I feel like the only reason someone's talking to me or wanting something from me is because they want, or doing something for me rather, is because they want something back. That's not friendship. That doesn't feel safe. So we have to make a conscious decision about what we truly want, because you're going to constantly be facing competing desires. Part of you is going to want to jump in and stop the fighting when the kids are fighting in the other room and threaten to take away the show, because if you threaten to take away their show that they get to watch, they're going to stop. But part of you knows that this is foul frustration that's got to come up, that needs to be honored, that we need to do something so they're not hurting each other or property, but coming in with a punitive punishment, a threat, is going to not create the long-term emotional capability for them to handle that down the road. So it's short-term win, long-term loss. So are we committed to coming in and to figuring out how to not jump to our normal judgments and conclusions and giving, sanctions right away? Are we willing to be uncomfortable as we figure this out as a parent, to treat them in a compassionate and firm way, to set a limit from a place of connection, not correction, to have the outcome be the relationship is stronger because of the way we handled the kids fighting? But we're going to stumble. We're going to fail sometimes. We're going to feel really uncomfortable. We're going to freeze sometimes. Are we willing? Are we committed? Part of you is going to want the house clean. And that if you threaten the kids that they'll lose friend time, they're going to clean. They'll get into action. But part of you wants them to want to clean, wants them to want to listen to you. And that's the dilemma we're in. Are we committed to that or not? And if we mess up, that's not a problem. I'm not saying we're committed to being perfect. Absolutely not. We're committed to the process. So do you see what I'm talking about? Deciding ahead of time is key. What are the rules? How do you want to show up? What kind of relationship do you want to form with your kids? This is what's going to lead to making a commitment that you are going to do the things that will get you closer to your goals and going to prevent you from quitting on yourself. So let's talk about what drives that level of commitment. It starts with 3 things: desire, belief, commitment. So for example, I've had parents tell me that they want to be more patient, more present, more intentional with their children. They want to do it, but they hesitate sometimes on moving forward. Why? Because their belief and their ability to change isn't strong enough. That's what I think it is most of the time. And without that belief, the commitment wavers. If you don't truly believe either in yourself or in the power of a connective-based parenting framework, like Connect Method Parenting, you don't understand the importance of setting boundaries, staying calm during tantrums, coming alongside big emotions, prioritizing connection over control, it's going to be hard to stick with it when things get tough. So before anything else, ask yourself, what do I truly want as a parent? Not just what feels good in the moment, but what are you willing to commit to? Even when you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you're unsure, that decision made in advance, that's what's going to shape the kind of parent you become. So if your desire is at a 10, you're so excited about the possibility of becoming the kind of parent you've always wanted to be, more patient, more present, more connected. You're dreaming of creating a strong bond with your child, of fostering a home filled with warmth and trust, but also that firmness that you need, boundaries and rules. You have consistency, which they really do need. Raising a confident, emotionally secure child, that desire is huge. For many, the belief is there too. You've listened to enough things. You've read my book. You've listened to this podcast. Maybe you've joined League. You see the positive outcomes that Connect Method Parenting creates. So you believe that you're capable of changing. So now we have lots of desire. We have lots of belief. You're coming feeling thrilled and confident. But then comes the real question, how committed are we? And I think this is just a very interesting question to explore, because I think we feel really committed. We'll even say, I'm 100% committed. And this can go in other areas too. So you can think about a situation with parenting. You can think about a situation with your health. You can think about a situation with your finances. You can say, I'm 100% committed. So I'll push further sometimes when either to myself or other people when I say this. I'm like, okay, so what if I told you for the next year, no matter how tired you were, no matter how stressed out you were going to do the work inside of, Connect Method Parenting. We'll use my program for an example. You're committed to doing this. If you mess up, you're going to do daily peace, which is our way to assess what's going on in our brain. You're going to continue to create and implement connection plans. You're going to stick with the plan regardless of how your child responds, totally taking away transactional energy around connection. You're going to come alongside big emotions. You're going to stay calm during tantrums. You're going to put away distractions when your child really needs you and respond with patience as much as humanly possible. And if you don't, would you be willing to give me $10,000? And just to be clear, what I'm saying here as I described all of that, I'm not saying you need to be perfect at implementing all of those things, but I'm asking you to stick with the process for you, regardless of how your kids behave for a year. And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to stick with this for a year? Because you believe that the most important thing your child needs is that connection, that relationship, that it's more vital than food and water. And you would never withdraw food and water. It's a basic human right. So if connection, if a safe relationship are basic human rights, you would try everything humanly possible to give it to them, to offer that to your child. It doesn't mean you condone their behavior. It just means you are meeting them where they're at. You're setting boundaries and limits from a place of service, not punishment. You're holding limits because you know that it helps them purge non-productive emotions and that it's good to have somebody in charge. You need to be in the lead. They need to be in the dependent. And holding limits with compassion and firmness, not judgment or frustration, is helpful. It's needed. And you might mess up, but you're also committing to recover, repair, and reset as soon as possible. You're committing to say, hey, if I mess up, I'm getting back on track. And you're committing to never make your mistakes mean that there is something wrong with you, or that you are flawed, or that you're incapable of parenting like this because of some personal character trait. So you're committing to all of those things, staying on the process. If you mess up, getting on a call, working through it, doing daily peace, asking for help, sticking with the commitment. I use the analogy a lot of times like Mario Kart, because we played that a lot when my kids were in high school. I guess I still have two in high school, but when my older were in high school, we started playing that. And, you drive off the road if you played Mario Kart. I drove off almost constantly. You drive off the road and the little, flyer thing would come and put you back on the track just over and over again. And that's what I think about with this is, am I committed to continuing to drive? Even if I go off the track, I come back on. Am I committed to that? And if you are willing to say yes, I would do that. Or if I don't, I will give you $10,000. But suddenly a lot of people, not the amazing, incredible people that make it into my program, because they don't say this, but when I'm having conversations with other people about parenting or about life, and I ask them this, I push them well, are you really committed to the weight loss? If you didn't do the things you said, would you give me $10,000? Is that how committed you are? And I don't want the $10,000. I want to see where their commitment is. And a lot of times they'll say, wait. I'm going to try my best, but I can't guarantee that. And that's the point. True commitment isn't about trying. It's not about hoping it works out. It's deciding that no matter what, you're going to show up. You're going to do the work. If I asked you, are you going to feed your children this week? You wouldn't hesitate. You would say, yeah. You wouldn't say, I'll try. You'll say, of course I am, because that's a non-negotiable commitment. And that's the kind of commitment that creates real change in parenting. It's not about waiting to see if it works. It's about deciding up front that you will do it no matter what. You will do it imperfectly, but you will do it. You will get back on course when you get off. You will repair ASAP. It's a done deal. And if you do that, changes happen. I promise you changes happen. I want to tell you a little story. The movie I think is called Eddie the Eel. I can't remember. Eddie Edwards, that's his name. Eddie Edwards. And we watched it years ago with my kids. I think it's a great movie. Just watch it yourself. Watch it with your kids if they're old enough to get it. But I think it illustrates this point of commitment and resilience so well. So most people, right, we chase our dreams with one foot out the door, always giving ourselves a backup plan. But Eddie Edwards, he was from England. He was not one of those people. And I can't remember when this happened. It was a while ago. But from a little boy, Eddie had dreamed of being an Olympic athlete, but he wasn't very athletic. That was a big problem. He had big, thick glasses. He didn't see very well. He didn't come from any kind of prestigious sports family. That didn't matter to his family. And for whatever reason, he got it inside of himself, made this decision that he was going to be in the Olympics. And he removed every other option. It was not an option for him to not make it to the Olympics. And he tried multiple sports to try to figure out if he could somehow excel at a sport well enough to make it to the Olympics. But he wasn't very good at athletics. But he found a sport that the United Kingdom had no team for. There was no one doing it. And he figured, well, if there's no one doing it, there's no competition. I can learn the skill and I can go to the Olympics. So they had no Olympic ski jumpers. You guys, ski jumpers are those ones that go down the crazy steep hills and then they just fly. And they look so scary to me. But he had made this decision he was going to be an Olympic athlete. So he with no formal training, no coach that would work with him. I think he did eventually find one, but eventually, no funding, no team. And he had never ski jumped in his life. I don't know if he'd ever skied in his life. I know that they have, maybe they do. I don't know that much about the ski scene in England, but I mean, there is in Europe. So, but in the movie, they didn't talk about it, and I haven't read anything that mentions that he was a skier of any kind, but he didn't hesitate. He went all in. So he traveled to Germany. That's where the professional ski jumpers trained. And he threw himself into sport. Literally, he was crashing. He was crashing a lot. He was breaking bones. He was suffering brutal wipeouts that would have made anybody who was even in like somewhat reasonable mind or somewhat reasonable, we'd call a reasonable person, quit. Other athletes were laughing at him. Officials were trying to push him out. But every single time Eddie got back up because he had already decided he was going to the Olympics. So he was thinking, well, there's nobody else on the team, so I'm just going to naturally qualify for the Olympics. But he did find out that he had to jump at least a certain length to qualify for the Olympics. So that became his next commitment, and he got it. He qualified for the 1988, that's the Olympics. I did write it down. The 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. And let's be clear, he knew he wasn't there to win. That wasn't what he was committed to. He was committed to going to the Olympics as an athlete. So these other competitors had been training since they were kids, little kids. They had world-class coaches, top-tier equipment, perfect technique. But Eddie had heart, he had resilience, he had commitment, and then he just moved forward with that. I mean, that's all he had, and it's all he needed. So when Eddie would jump, his arms were stiff, his form was awkward, and the jumps weren't beautiful. There's a scene in the movie where he's at the Olympics in Calgary, and I think it's his first run of the actual Olympics where they're doing the competition for the Olympics, not warming up, and he goes down, and it's the shortest jump in Olympic ski jump history. And they show the audience, and they're embarrassed for him, and the commentators are kind of joking. And the expectation, you can see it, at least this is what I felt. You could see this expectation on everybody's face who was watching him, that they expected him to walk away humiliated. But Eddie was thrilled. He was thrilled. It was his personal best jump. He saw the score, and everybody else saw the score and thought, ooh, that's like the worst. That's the worst jump we've seen ever in Olympic history. And he thought, that is the best jump I've ever done in my whole life. And that was all that mattered to him. And right there on that big, huge stage that was being broadcasted to the world, he started flapping his arms like wings and dancing in pure joy. I'm getting emotional because it's so beautiful. The crowd at first was so confused, but eventually the crowd started cheering because he wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't defeated. He was celebrating his own achievement. And that's the moment he became Eddie the Eagle, because the broadcasters, somebody, I don't remember who it was, nicknamed him that because he looked like a bird and his name was Eddie. So go for Eddie the Eagle. And he became Eddie the Eagle, and he became wildly popular. He forced the world to take notice because he decided what he wanted, and he didn't give himself any escape routes. He became legendary. I mean, we're talking about him here in 2025, and his jump was in 88, and it was the worst jump ever recorded in Olympic history, the shortest jump. And that's the difference between people who dabble and people who make things happen. When you're all in, you don't worry about looking foolish. You don't worry about things when they get hard. You don't compare yourself to others. You celebrate your own milestones. We stop looking at our neighbor's success and we just focus on how we did today, and we celebrate that. And in the end, you inspire people, not because you're the best, but because you refuse to quit. That's what Eddie the Eagle teaches us. That is what true commitment looks like. You guys got to go watch it now. I got to go watch it again. After I'm thinking about it again, it's just such a good story of staying in your own lane, staying committed, and being proud of yourself, no matter what other people think. I'm proud of myself that I stayed with my daughter while she was having a big tantrum. And I know that person over there that saw me might think it was a failure, but I know it wasn't. In fact, that was the best job I'd ever done showing up for her. It looked like the worst of that other person. I know it's the best. Your commitment as a parent isn't about other people's approval. It isn't about the behavior of your kids. It's about deciding in advance who you want to be, no matter what happens. Think about the power in that. No matter how exhausted I am, no matter how challenging the day is, no matter how much my child pushes my limits, I am committed to showing up with patience, with presence, with love, with compassion. That's the stance of true commitment. For me, that means doing whatever I decide to do for the next 12 months. I'm going all in on it. I'm being the most present, intentional parent I can be, not when it's easy, not when I feel like it, but no matter what. And here's why that commitment feels easy for me to say, because I know my reasons. I don't want to just get through parenting. I want to be an example of what's possible. I want to evolve beyond survival mode. I want my kids to feel unconditional positive regard for them, coming from me towards them, no matter what they're doing or saying or how they're being. And I don't want to focus on the struggle anymore. I did that for plenty of years, thinking I can't stop yelling. I just yelled too much. Can't get them to listen. If I could just make it through bedtime without frustration, I'm focusing on what's not working. That doesn't work for me anymore. But what if parenting could be more than just getting by? What if it could be amazing? And I'm not just saying we're avoiding the bad stuff, we're getting rid of the tantrums. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, in CMP Mastery right now, we're working on switching things around to look forward to these opportunities that our brain has previously logged as problematic or things we want to get rid of. Because when we can look forward to our kids having their next tantrum, not because we want them to have a tantrum, not because, we think that's great for them, but because we know it's necessary and we are excited for how we get to show up. We're excited for what we get to help them purge. We're excited for them to create more emotional resiliency. We're excited for ourselves to create more emotional resiliency. That shift is everything. So what if instead of just avoiding frustration, you decide to create real joy, deep connection, and a home that feels peaceful and fulfilling? That's next level. And you do that by how you show up to all of the things that are going to happen with your toddler or your teen or your tween. That happens when you commit, not just to avoid problems, but to intentionally create the family life you truly want because of all of the things, not in spite of, as a result of all of the things that are happening. So here's what I ask myself every day. What kind of parent do I want to be? Do I believe I can show up that way? Am I committed to making that happen no matter what? Because the key is in deciding in advance and then following through. It's not about perfection. It's about choosing your path and staying on it, even when life throws you challenges. And if you get off, you just get back on. And I know the way to do that is by managing my mind, by learning every day, studying every day, connect method parenting. Our ability to create the results we want in our parenting or in anything else comes down to how well we are managing our thoughts, how well we are feeling and processing our emotions, how well we are evaluating our reactions and the results with compassion and commitment so that we can get back to where we want to be. So the question is, are you committed to that process? Not just when it's easy, but no matter what. In Connect Method Parenting, we have this tool called Steer that's within a process called Peace. I think I've done an episode on both of those in the past. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to one of those. And if you're in league, you obviously know what I'm talking about. But here's the deal. In the tool, there's this place where we write the result. And sometimes we're writing the result of something that happened yesterday with our kids, with ourselves. We're looking at, I yelled, or I wasn't as patient, or I started getting irritated. That's the result. And we're evaluating an unintentional, we call it unintentional steer, something that happened in the past that we're trying to understand more so we can learn and grow. Sometimes we're creating intentional steers for the future, and we're dreaming up whatever we want. And you can write anything you want in the R line or the result line. I mean, knock yourself out. Whatever goal you have, you could set it boldly. Want to run a marathon? Put it in the result line. Want to plant the most beautiful garden? Put it in the result line. By the way, the garden is one of mine for this upcoming spring. Maybe the marathon's going to make it on there someday, some year. Mastering guitar, you could put it in the result line. Create the most incredible bedtime routine, put it in the result line. Go all in. Don't play small. Set the goals that excite you. Because here's the thing. Believing you can do something carries no risk. Wanting to do something carries no risk. But committing to do something, that's when the stakes get real. As soon as you commit to running the marathon, you have to train. Even when your legs ache. As soon as you commit to growing the garden, you have to go get your hands in the dirt, even when the weather doesn't cooperate. The moment you fully commit, you open yourself up to obstacles. And this is where most people hesitate. I've seen it so many times. People set out with enthusiasm, but the moment things get hard, their belief wavers. The excitement wears off. The work doesn't seem fun anymore. Desire fades. Doubt creeps in. But commitment is what keeps you going even when desire disappears. So you don't feel like waking up at 5 a.m. to train for your race, but commitment gets you out of bed. Your first batch of tomatoes die, but commitment has you replacing, replanting, figuring out what went wrong, and not giving up. You struggle with an instrument, can't figure out those strings on the guitar. Commitment keeps you practicing even when progress is slow. You're tired and you don't feel like reading books or scratching the kid's back or staying calm or even doing bedtime at all tonight. You start wondering if you're cut out for this, but commitment keeps you showing up no matter what. And that is why commitment leads to resilience. Resilience is what helps you get back right up, standing right up after you fail. It's what pushes you forward when the process gets harder than you expected. So ask yourself, what do I really want? And then, why don't I have it yet? The answer probably is that your compelling reason isn't strong enough. Because when your reason is powerful, when the goal is something that truly matters to you, no excuse will be strong enough to stop you. So decide not to just believe you can, not to just want it, but to fully commit no matter what. Let's talk a second about why you might be afraid of fully committing. For some of you, it might be the discomfort of doing something new. For others, it could be the fear of making a mistake or the fear of judgment or just having the overwhelming thought of how much effort this is going to take. Or you might doubt yourself so much that you don't know if you're capable. So fear of failing and it proving that, I'm just not good enough. But when you choose something specific to focus on, whether it's being more patient with your kids, setting better boundaries, or following through on your connection plan, you have to recognize what's been holding you back from already doing it. So when you choose, when you get specific, that's when the obstacles, that's when the resistance is going to show up. If you keep it vague, they're not going to show up. But if you get specific, all of a sudden you're not going to have time to do the connection plan. You're going to not want to set the firm boundary because you don't want to experience the discomfort. That's when you're going to start to notice what's getting in your way. If you don't intentionally decide to do something, then you're just going to keep going to your old defaults. So focusing on how exhausting parenting can be, how impossible it feels to stay calm when your child's melting down, or how tempting it is to give up on consistency because it's easier in the moment, that's what's going to happen. All of those things are going to happen when you commit. But if you tell your brain, the most important thing right now is following through on this new parenting plan I created with Andy during this live call. I'm going to follow through with that no matter what. Then all of those distractions of how hard it is and how much work it feels like it's going to be and how tempted we are to just let things slide become irrelevant because we've already made the decision. They're going to come up because the more specific your goal and the more committed you are, those obstacles, those things that will push back against you are going to come up. But the commitment is going to be there. The decision will be made and they will be not relevant. When options present themselves, like doubting myself or resorting to threats, I remind myself that those things aren't even on the table. I stay committed to what I decided. And resilience, that's what you're all going to create more of. Remember, resilience is the ability to recover when things get hard because difficulties will absolutely come up. So my commitment fuels my resilience. And my reason for doing this in the first place fuels my commitment. If I don't have a strong why, if I don't truly believe in the importance of what I'm doing, then I'm going to struggle. But if I stay clear on why this matters, then no matter how hard it gets, I'll keep going. So as parents, we have to be prepared to manage our own minds. We have to be ready to tell ourselves no. No to reacting to frustration, no to offering connection in a transactional way, no to thinking big emotions and tantrums are a problem, no to the belief that if our child is struggling, we must be failing. No to all of those things. If you're going to commit to something big, like creating a home where your child feels safe and seen and respected, you're going to have to hear your own no's to things that you aren't willing to do anymore. Because every time you choose connection over correction, every time you pause before reacting and you decide to connectively respond instead, every time you hold a boundary with calm confidence, with that compassion and firm energy, you are strengthening your ability to create the results you actually want to have. And that's one of the biggest things that I see in parents who are transforming their relationships with their kids. They're in it for the long game. They trust that change will come. They trust that leading with connection is the way to go. And I see sometimes parents that come in and initially they struggle. They know everything intellectually. They're new into my program. They've read the books. They've listened to the podcasts. They understand the concepts at some level. But the real shift hasn't happened because they haven't lived it yet. It's practicing the pause. It's holding the boundary, seeing what comes up. It's reminding themselves, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is the work. That's when everything starts to change. Yeah. When you break the cycle of yelling or frustration when your child who once pushed back at everything suddenly wants to connect with you, suddenly wants to listen to you. That's the moment you blow your own mind. When you do things you once thought were impossible, you create a new dynamic with your child. You show up differently. You model the kind of emotional regulation and leadership you want your children to learn. And when you do this, you don't just transform your relationship with your child, you transform yourself. You transform the possibilities for your child. And that's the work. That's the work we're doing to grow beyond our knee-jerk reactions, to challenge the patterns we grew up with in society, to become more intentional, more patient, more connected. But as our brains to become more intentional, more patient, more connected. But our brains resist change. They want to keep things comfortable. They want to default to old patterns and habits. They want to avoid effort. And if we listen to that, we're going to stay stuck in the same cycle, reacting instead of responding, controlling instead of connecting. This is why commitment matters so much. When you commit to leading with connection, even when it's hard, you train your brain to evolve. You stop letting old patterns decide what you're going to do for your parenting. They stop dictating your parenting. You stop believing that you don't know how. And that's step one. Refuse confusion. Confusion is just a way to stay stuck. It's easy to say, I don't know how to get my child to listen without yelling, or I don't know how to stay calm when they're melting down. But that's not a reason to stop. That's a reason to start. Think about it. People commit to marriage, to a new job, to a new workout routine, to buying a house without knowing exactly how that journey is going to go or how things are going to turn out. They're going to figure it out along the way. Parenting is no different. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to know exactly how it's going to go down. You just need to commit to the process, to take imperfect action, to be willing to get it wrong, to learn from what you've done and try again. That's how change happens. And the second step is simple but powerful. Make a decision to commit. Commitment is a choice. And at some point, you have to draw that line in the sand. You have to say, hey, I'm going to show up as the parent I want to be no matter what. And I'm going to evaluate and grow. I'm not going to make this personal, but I'm staying here no matter what. Not just when it's easy, not just when my child's cooperative, not just when I feel patient, but always. And most importantly, write down your compelling reason why. What drives you to parent with connection instead of control? Why does that matter to you? Your why is what fuels you when things get hard. And if your reason doesn't feel strong enough yet, rewrite it. Dig deeper. Make it so compelling that giving up is no longer an option. And now ask yourself this: what's getting in the way? What are the competing desires that pull you back into old habits? If you want to create more calm in your home, but you're reacting with frustration, ask yourself why. What is the thought or trigger behind that? Maybe it feels easier in the moment to react with frustration. Why? Maybe it was modeled to you when you were growing up. Maybe it gives you a temporary sense of control. But then ask yourself, what would make my desire to lead with connection so strong that yelling, frustration, or control weren't even an option anymore? Keep working at this until your why is so big that the urge to fall back into old patterns doesn't even seem like an option. Commitment means being willing to be uncomfortable. It means telling yourself no when you want to react impulsively in the kindest way. You're just like, stop. Nope, we're not doing that anymore. As soon as you can interrupt it, whether it's in the moment or after the moment, you're starting to catch yourself. You're interrupting old patterns. When you interrupt old patterns, you create new patterns. It means choosing patience when every part of you wants to snap. And yeah, sometimes we'll still snap into being impatient, but the commitment to, hey, I am figuring this out and I'm interrupting the pattern in the moment if I can. I'm noticing it after the fact if I can. I'm repairing as quickly as possible. I'm choosing patience. And I might not be able to choose it in the moment today, but I'm learning how to choose it. I will learn how to choose it in the moment. Doing everything outside of the moment, before the moment, in the moment to learn how to choose how to show up like this. It means knowing that there will be obstacles, but also knowing that you can handle them. And most importantly, don't quit. You keep taking action, adjusting, learning, and trying again. No matter how many times you feel like you have failed, quote unquote, you haven't, because failure isn't proof that you can't do it. It's proof that you are doing something, that you're evolving, that you're becoming the parent you want to be. And many parents stay stuck because they fear messing up. They're afraid they're going to do it wrong. This was me. I was so afraid of those things back in the day when my kids were little. And I was so afraid of getting it wrong because I wanted it to be perfect that it got me stuck. You can also fear the discomfort of change. It goes hand in hand with the other one. But the truth is, by choosing growth, you're moving further and further away from the struggles you're so afraid of repeating. So don't just think about this. do the work, write your commitment down, revise it, strengthen it, because this is what will pull you through the hard moments and into the kind of parenting that transforms you, your family, your kids for the better. Oh, I love that we got to talk about this today, about going all in. And I will talk to you all very, very soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day. See y'all later, guys. Bye. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.